Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo and we're here at the South Park Center. I'm here with James and Bud with their movies Shoto and Zumari. Let's take a look at some clips.
In the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness. I call on all leaders to expand democratic space that allow the creativity and the energy of their citizens.
Guys, thank you very much for being here today and congratulations on your films. You have made these films a part of a very special project, so tell us a bit more about that.
Sure. So Shoto and Zumari are two films that were created in a 5-day filmmaking intensive in Nairobi, Kenya. And
Wow.
The program that it was a part of was called Stories Found. And both films are about 5 minutes in length, but there are these little vignettes into sort of Nairobi culture. Characters that you wouldn't normally know are there, especially as us as Americans or Western culture. Maybe we're not so aware of some of these stories, but they were created by 12 filmmakers, emerging filmmakers in Kenya, and they're just they're great little glimpses into Nairobi life.
Now, it's hard enough making a film in the first place, but then, going to experience a different world, a different culture, and making a film in like a 5-day intensive period. I mean, this organization, Stories Found, sounds wonderful. How did the organization come about, and how did you both get involved with the project?
Bud had shot a film in Nairobi previously, and so he had some experience with sort of navigating the world, and in doing those, he met some really great people who live in Nairobi. And so we had a couple of other instructors with us that were sort of our boots on the ground. And they helped us sort of navigate the pre-production process, getting everything in order, making sure that we had permits and all those little things that are needed with making films, so that when we arrived and met the students, we were able to hit the ground running with them. So there's some challenges along the way with sort of coordinating schedules and making sure everybody can commit to a 1-week intensive, but the students that we had were incredible.
Yeah.
They were motivated and excited to be there.
Yeah.
And I think you can really see that in the films.
Oh, you can feel that in the films. I mean, it's almost amazing that you did this in 5 days. I can't get my head around that, to be honest with you. Yeah. But also, I mean, you just showed this glimpse of Kenya that is just beautiful country, amazing people. Like, what was that experience like for you as directors to go and film over there and then work with the emerging talent of the local community as well?
Well, it was extremely humbling. I mean, it was just like this. At a certain point, I think James and I both just stepped away and let the students go.
Amazing.
Leading up to that intensive, they worked through the Stories Found online course, and it's an online course that was free to them, and it covers pre-production, production, and post-production. And so the course served as kind of a primer for them leading into that week. And so we met on Monday, and we said, okay, here are the 2 stories as submitted by you guys. Here's, then we just started putting together a production plan. How are we going to do this in basically a day of shooting and 3 days of editing? And I mean, they just went for it.
Yeah, I think too they were so excited that they completed the online curriculum that they're like, okay, well, I've done this, I've committed this time, let's do it for real. Like, let's get out there and actually see this thing. And so to be out with them on location, because we actually divided into 2 teams of 6 students each. So we were concurrently working on both films. And so it was exciting because we would be out there doing it, but then we would come in together in the evenings and look at dailies and talk about what we've done and make a game plan for the next day. So it was just exciting for them. And honestly, it was their professionalism that they threw back at us that kept us motivated too.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it was just amazing to really just dive in with them and let them sort of show us their culture too, which
Yeah.
is, you know, important for us.
Yeah, most definitely. And you really did, you know, delve into the, you know, your subjects, and your documentaries were fantastic. And of course, there's a certain style in documentaries that is different to a narrative. Was that something that, you know, you had to, were you teaching the students, or how was that process for you? Because obviously you're following people around on their journey every day. It's a little bit different from going from a script.
Absolutely. You know, we wanted to approach this Stories Found Nairobi documentary style. So we knew that we had some stories. In fact, all stories that were submitted as part of the application of these students were submitted by the students. So
Wow.
these 2 stories in particular were found by 2 of the students who worked with us. So these are stories that are close to them, and these are things that they see every day. And so they wanted to bring it to life. And so I think naturally, because of that, documentary made a lot of sense. We had a couple of students with experience in the narrative side, which I think helped them with, you know, capturing sound, knowing how to use the camera, you know, things like that are necessary. But ultimately, we knew that in this case, it made sense to sort of dive in and you know, share a day in the life of these subjects.
And that's really how we chose the directors too.
Yeah.
Student directors. They're the ones who were closest to those stories.
Yeah.
And they were the people who found these stories, which is hence the name Stories Found.
It's amazing. And what was kind of like, what was the sort of, you know, feeling like of going on this journey and then experiencing part of this culture? And then obviously it's passionate because it's their environment, isn't it? You know, it's their environment, and it's wonderful. And how much they feel their film is being showcased around the world in festivals. It must be an amazing experience for them.
Yeah. When I was visiting Kenya, you know, before this project and during this project, there's this very palpable sense, you know, just from the conversations you have with people living in Nairobi and Kenya, about them wanting to tell the story of Kenya, or the show people the real Africa. There's this sense when you talk to people that it's like there are some misconceptions about Africa, about Kenya, about a lot of countries in the African continent. And they're ready to tell it like it is, and show it like it really is. And I think that you know, I think the students had like a sense of empowerment from this. Okay, it's like, not only can I accomplish this, you know, seemingly impossible task in 5 days, but I'm telling a story that that is Kenyan, that is Nairobi. You know, and so I think they were really jazzed about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to sort of piggyback that, I mean, of course, we were excited to be able to go into these areas that maybe we wouldn't normally have access to if we were just tourists in Nairobi. But also, some of the students I found hadn't been to some of these areas either.
Oh wow, that's
and so
great.
you know, there were students that were from all over Kenya who came into Nairobi to be a part of this project. There were most that lived in Nairobi as well. So, you know, some of them would ride matatus, or they maybe have heard of the Art of Music program, but they haven't been to to those locations or seen the slums along the way. And so I think it was sort of eye-opening for them to experience part of their own culture that maybe they've read about or have heard about, but, you know, I think it was sort of this opportunity for them to be in it too. And to have that icebreaker of like, okay, yeah, we're here with a purpose. Yeah. This is why I'm finally able to visit this area.
It's the Matatu culture is fascinating, and just an incredible part of their lifestyle and society. Was it kind of nice for them to sort of, as their students, they're sort of really learning about, because I think they might be thinking when you go into project they're going to learn about the dynamics of filmmaking, but then the great thing is, as you are documentary filmmakers, you learn about people, about process. What was that was there kind of a lot of experience that was nice for them to kind of receive about learning more about even their own culture and their own environment as well?
Absolutely. I mean, some of them will ride matatus daily. Yeah. And that's part of their daily life. And others, they might live outside of the city a little bit more and they'll, focus more on driving. But for everybody, it was really important to see that each matatu has its own experience, its own culture behind it, its own vibe. And so we started to notice which matatus were attractive to the filmmakers themselves. Yeah. And that's the whole idea behind the mission, is that the idea behind these buses is, let's make my bus the best bus so that everyone wants to get on mine. And so you've got different music, you've got different graffiti that's being used, and I think it was really nice for them to dive into that and learn more about it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that one of the things that the students learned from a filmmaking perspective, just about stories and about people, and maybe people in their own city, is they started to tune into the tools of kind of a documentary filmmaker, which is, you know, your ears, your eyes, you know, getting a little bit closer to your, you know, to your surroundings, you know, and to keep in mind that, yes, you know, the primary tool of a filmmaker is a camera, but, you know, how does the location sound? Can that inform your story? Or does that tell you something about your character even? And so getting them to kind of think about these little nuances maybe was really valuable, and I think for them, but also for me, it just kind of validated some things that, you know, that I had learned in my path too.
Well, apart from doing this in a 5-day intensive, what was some of the biggest challenges that you faced whilst you were there? If there was any, or was it all easy, plain sailing?
Yeah. You know, naturally, I think on the objective side, when you have 12 people, 17 really with everybody involved, including the instructors, coming together and having to facilitate the scheduling of that. Day one, the pre-production day, we called it, of the intensive, we went to the U.S. Embassy, which we partnered with for this project. So you've got to deal with, you know, security and getting in and making sure that people are able to commit for a full week and take time away from their jobs to be a part of something like this. And that was sort of a concern leading in, and then we realized, oh yeah, that's no big deal. Everybody was so excited to be a part of it that they didn't mind the little hiccups along the way that came up. You know, and also naturally just dealing with the embassy and making sure that we're doing what they want us to do, or delivering an idea or project that they're excited about was something on the back of our mind. But really, I mean, it's sort of like a blind date. You get kind of nervous and anxious leading into it, and then you just hit the ground running, and it hopefully will all come together.
Yeah.
And thankfully it did with both of these.
Yeah. And I think also too, making the curriculum relevant to the film industry in Kenya, or to making the techniques relevant to them on their path as filmmakers, right? We talk about this all the time, but really the reason this program was successful in its pilot year was because we had Kenyan filmmakers who were helping us and could kind of speak to the barriers, the challenges, but also the benefits of being a filmmaker in Kenya. And so, yeah, I think that was a challenge for us as two filmmakers from Atlanta. Yeah, you know, maybe we can bring some value there, sure, but really, we kept asking ourselves, how can we make this absolutely relevant to them, and you know, how can we make this as valuable as possible to them as Kenyan filmmakers?
And in the end, we wanted to empower them. We wanted them to not just spend a week with us and then go back to their normal jobs. We wanted them to have the tools for them to go out and tell stories.
Wow, that's fantastic.
One of the most exciting things is we have a WhatsApp group chat. I mean, daily they are sharing flyers with each other of events coming up or opportunities for festivals or other films that they can work on together.
Wow.
And there's this really awesome sense of family that happened that quickly. And I mean, even just a week ago, Zumari, the subject in Zumari, a couple of our filmmakers had visited Elvis and hung out with him for the day. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's just really cool to see that and you know, maybe they would have done this on their own eventually, but for us to have facilitated something that could add to that was our sort of mission.
And speaking of your subjects, how have they kind of reacted to making these films?
That's a great question.
Or do they even know? They haven't seen it yet.
So, I mean, we really wanted to make sure that the filmmakers had the opportunity to take these on the festival circuit, and so we have been kind of keeping it, you know, the sort of password protected screener. But I mean, the response that we've gotten from the students and their friends and their families and their colleagues has generally been pretty positive. I mean, a lot of the students told us at the end of it that, you know, I studied filmmaking in Kenya, and yet I felt like I learned more in the last 5 days than I had in my study. And I mean, really, that kind of took the wind out of me when one of the students pulled me aside and said that.
Wow. That must feel really amazing. Right. And I think it, you know, also makes you realize that, you know, when you're just doing it, you know, when you're out there and just doing it and getting involved, it's a big moment. And you kind of, once you get stuck in, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm really learning here as I'm doing it, right? Which is a great thing.
And something that I do want to say is that I still felt like I learned more that week than probably the students did.
Isn't that great too, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think it's a really important thing. I think there's a certain, I think I love it when I hear filmmakers say that, because, you know, I think it doesn't matter what age you are, whether you've had 20 years experience or 5, you can learn a lot from each other. And you can teach each other, and I think that's a really important element. But I love the fact you instilled so much confidence in these students to go on and be filmmakers, or just have confidence to do whatever they want to do in their lives. I think that's such a valuable thing that you can experience in filmmaking. What's next for you both?
So what's next is we're going to take it back to Kenya again.
Oh, fantastic. You fell in love with Kenya, didn't you, I see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. And ultimately, the vision is to take it to you know, internationally, take it to other communities, and you know, keep it in maybe larger cities, you know, sort of hub cities. We're kind of attracted to that just because there's a lot of opportunity for stories there in those places.
Well, I love that you've just, you know, taken on board and taken this wonderful opportunities, and these great talented filmmakers in Kenya are making these opportunities possible. I think that's a great credit to you both. But on top of all of that, it's you know, a great shining light on a great country as well, which I love that you both have done that as well. Any student out there, having worked with many students, what piece of advice could you give as experienced filmmakers about, you know, what things you need, or what's one thing that you need in your career as filmmakers?
I think you know, just get out there and help if you can. You know, if you can be hired on as a PA and help and just sort of see the process and see what all of the different elements involved in filmmaking, that's great. But even if you can't do that, just go and, you know, shadow for the evening and see what you can do, or sign up to help with crafty, you know, and bring a meal for everybody and get to know some people, and because truly what it really comes down to is the experience of being on set and being around stories. You know, kind of goes back to what Bud was saying about this, one of the students who had studied it but not necessarily experienced it, and to really dive in and just really get to know people and start telling your own stories is sort of what I would
love that.
suggest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I would say you just have to, if you're not finding opportunities, or you're not able to find you know, work or things like that, nothing is stopping you. Well, for the most part, nothing's stopping you from going and finding that story and shooting it with you know, whatever equipment you do have. So really, trial by fire, I think, is like the best way to learn, and it's the best way to get started. I mean, that's kind of how I got started. Was just like
get stuck in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't, but you know, we still learn, don't we?
I definitely don't.
Learning.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, thank you, James. Thank you, Bud, for both of your work. Thank you to all the students in Nairobi, Kenya. We appreciate you, and we're looking forward to much more of your films. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye, everyone.